Hello everyone, thank you so much for tuning in with me, Gloria Celinda. I'm very excited to be with you once more as we continue to reflect on the topic of true personal identity. Today, our reflection is a plea from me to you to get rid of the victim mentality. One assumes a victim mentality when they believe they are helpless, when they believe that there isn't any hope of them coming out of a situation. They believe that life happens to them, they have no agency, and live mostly out of fear of what is happening around them, but they also believe that they have no control over what is happening to them. When one gives up their agency and assumes a victim mentality, they're literally giving their power away to anyone else who makes decisions that affect them, and they think that they have no right to push back. They think that they have no right to make different decisions, even when they know that a specific decision is not going to serve them. There is a difference between being a victim because you have gone through a specific traumatic incident or event or experience and taking on a victim mentality. When one takes on a victim mentality, they assume ownership of the state of being. Remember that true personal identity talks about your belief system and your value system. So, what you believe you are, what you tell yourself you are, even when you tell yourself that things are happening to you and you have no control over them, and you have no choice over those things, then that becomes your personal identity. The victim mentality does not just show up in a person. Usually, a person goes through very traumatic experiences in life, sometimes for prolonged periods of time, such that they have developed a coping mechanism for themselves for dealing with whatever situation and experience that they are going through. If it's something that has happened over prolonged periods of time, then their belief system changes. If someone is in an environment that is unhealthy for them, someone is dealing with trauma in their lives, someone who has assumed a victim mentality finds themselves in a negative spiral most of the time. The language that they use is that of helplessness. They usually find themselves complaining about most things in their lives. They may end up finding themselves assuming a victim mentality even without realizing it. And they usually find themselves pessimistic. A person who has assumed a victim mentality just goes through life. They are dragging themselves through many things. Some of them find themselves in very difficult experiences where they even go through depression most times in their lives. They don't have a desire to even work toward their dreams, to work toward their vision. You'll be surprised that a victim mentality actually shows up to the extreme in how I've explained it so far, but it also shows up in workplaces. For example, you'll find an employee complaining about how much their team leader or their boss dumps work on them, and they just continue to do the work, but they've never had a conversation with the boss to say, boss, I'm not coping. Yet it will be very easy for them to complain about the situation. The interesting thing about such people who have a bit of victim mentality is that they are very dutiful, and they come across as reliable and people trust them to complete tasks. You also at times find people with victim mentalities coming through in marriages, in relationships, where one complains about a spouse. They complain about how much the spouse is hurting them, but they are not committed to doing something about that. It seems that they get comfort in being in that situation, in complaining about that situation to other people, but also in getting the pity that they sometimes get from others who are willing to lend an ear to them. Before I go any further, I want to take a moment and appreciate all of you who continue tuning in Thank you for your support. Thank you to those who have subscribed already. If you haven't subscribed as yet, please click the subscribe button. I urge all of you to share the link with others so that we can continue to learn and grow together. Why is having a victim mentality not healthy for you? Having a victim mentality is not healthy for any individual. It is not healthy for your true personal identity. Having a victim mentality stops you from progressing at a pace that you generally would progress if everything that you believe about yourself, about your environment, about the people in your life were different. Having a victim mentality puts you down. Sometimes having a victim mentality also discourages you from doing different things in your life. You have people who say, I cannot change jobs because I am not educated. And they say that for 15 years. And somebody else who's listening to that could be thinking, but in the past 10 years, 5 years, 15 years, you could have actually done something different. You could have studied further. You could have tried a different job so that you find yourself in a better position. So people with victim mentalities seem to be comfortable, but that is not the natural position where they ought to be finding themselves. That is not a way to progress in life, and that is not a way to live according to your true personal identity. So remember, my plea is get rid of the victim mentality. However it shows up in your space, in your situation. It could be in a specific area of your life, or it could be to the extreme in most things in your life. It is not healthy for your true personal identity. It does not help your progress. It does not help your relationships. Sometimes people with victim mentality have lived with that mentality and that belief for the longest time in their lives, to an extent that they believe that this is normal for them. I'm reminded of the story of the children of Israel when God was delivering them in the book of Exodus, chapter 14. And in that story, the children of Israel, when they saw the Egyptians following them, when God had instructed Moses that they should go through the Red Sea, their complaints were such that they preferred to be in Egypt. And that was because it was something that was familiar for them. I want to read this passage of scripture. It's in Exodus chapter 14. I will read from verse 11 to verse 14. Then they said to Moses, because there were no graves in Egypt, have you taken us away to die in the wilderness? Why have you so dealt with us, to bring us up out of Egypt? Is this not the word that we told you in Egypt, saying, let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than that we should die in the wilderness. Verse 13. And Moses said to the people, do not be afraid, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. Verse 14. The Lord will fight for you, and you shall hold your peace. I want to include verse 15. And the Lord said to Moses, why do you cry to me? Tell the children of Israel to go forward. During the time when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, I think they forgot also who they were. They forgot that God had set a time for them to be delivered, forgot the power that God had and God continues to have, and they were looking at their situation at the time. They forgot that with the instructions that they had already received, God had already made a way for them. Someone with a victim mentality usually forgets the power that is within them, especially when they believe in Jesus Christ, the fact that they have authority, the fact that they have received the freedom spiritually from the Lord, and they can do things differently. They can exercise the right that they have received from the Lord to change the situation that they find themselves in at the time, to change their belief about themselves. It is our responsibility to have the will and to have the desire for this change. But as long as one continues to have a victim mentality, They are pushing the change away, and they are digging the grave deeper for themselves. And they will continue to be feeling and believing that they are helpless, and they will believe in the hopelessness around them. My plea is, reflect for yourself where you find that you have assumed this victim mentality. Check what is the root cause of the victim mentality, and start addressing it so that you can embrace your true personal identity as designed and defined by God, the Creator. Thank you very much for tuning in. Until next time.